Welcome everyone to the Dallas Area Chamber of Commerce Community Affairs Call. My name is Dan Spotts, representing the Chamber. Our guests this morning, Carolyn Grew, Kelly Housley Glover, Stephanie Krell, and Andrew Danes, representing United Way, Wasco County, Mid-Columbia Economic Development District on Rowena Fire recovery efforts. And we'll go around the Zoom table here, do some introductions, and if there are any updates from your organizations briefly, please let us know. Now's the time. So I will start with the people who are not speaking, and then I'm going to wrap up with them. So I'll start with Corliss.
Morning, everyone. Corliss Marsh. I'm with the Habitat for Humanity and with the library and the Senior Center and the College Foundation. And I always enjoy listening to everyone.
Thank you, Corliss. Dave Peters.
Good morning, everybody. Dave Peters, Columbia Cascade Housing, Mid-Columbia Housing Authority. Our biggest news is next Monday at the grade school in Carson, right next to our site where we're going to be developing 14 homes for home ownership. We're going to have kind of an open forum for people to come in and learn about that. So 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock at that grade school right there. There'll be people there from our organization.
Thank you, Dave. Dave, would you like to put that detail into the chat box also?
Sure. I don't know the address or anything, but I'll do it. But I know. Thanks.
Okay. Hey, if I could learn it, anybody could learn it. Tanya Brumley.
Thanks, Dan. So Tanya Brumley with Northwest Natural Gas, and and I'm here to support not only Caroline as a board member for United Way, and also Andrew as a board member for MCEDD, and the county as a taxpayer, yay. So the other piece, though, with my personal work is that Northwest Natural, along with partners with Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue, the Health District, and multiple other agencies, a big part being the County Emergency Services, is that we're doing an emergency preparedness event. This is the 12th plus year that we've done that in September. And this is a great venue to share that information, but it's September 20th at the fire station on 8th Street, 10 to 1. 25 plus vendors will be there to help people learn how to properly prepare for natural disasters. And in our area, there's all that comes in all shapes and sizes. So I'll do my best to try to attach something into the chat.
You should be able to include an attachment in that, if not some text messaging. Thank you, Tanya. Appreciate that. Liz Lance.
Hi, good morning. My name is Liz Lance, and I'm the executive director of the Q Life Network, which is a intergovernmental city, county, Northern Wasco County PUD initiative to bring fiber internet broadband connectivity, better internet than the Dalles currently ever has, and beyond to the region. So that's the work that I get to do in this region.
Keep up the good work, Liz.
Thank you.
Commissioner Phil Brady.
Good morning, Phil Brady, Wasco County. Today begins the Wasco County Fair. We're out there setting up everything. If you've got kids, bring them out. Big change is they used to have carnival rides. Then used to pay $1 and get a couple tickets. Now it's a couple tickets for $1. We quit that several years ago, and in its place, starting last year, we have arcade for kids, and it's free. So the kids can come and it's some simple things like putt-putt golf, some more complicated things like taekwondo, where they have to press lights and do things. Kind of like think of a bouncy house, but we don't have that, but we have a bouncy slide and a mechanical bull. So it's time to really put on your cowboy hats, bring the kids out, see the animals, and have some fun. Hey, and thanks out here to Wasco Electric. You guys have been a big supporter all along. Thanks.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate that. Good work down there. We have Heather Lamb.
Good morning, Heather Lamb with Wasco Electric Cooperative. We will be out at the fair today serving lunch. I think that goes from like noon to 1 or so, but we'll be out there doing that. Other than that, I don't have any updates.
All righty, great. And Stacy.
Morning, Dan. Sorry, I am Stacy Coburn, part of the Dalles, and also the Dalles Community Outreach Team for this year. And sorry, I am traveling to work, so I'll make it short.
Stacy, you're on the outreach team. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Jill Amory.
Good morning, Dan. I am Jill Amory. I'm your assessor and tax collector for Wasco County. I am also a new Port of the Dalles Commissioner, and I'm also a Rowena Fire resident. Happy to be here today, you guys.
Thank you for joining us, Jill. I apologize to a couple of folks. I've just managed to bring them into the call here. I'm working technology on the side, and that's not my strong suit. Jake Anderson joining the call.
Good morning. This is Jacob Anderson, Economic Development Officer for the City of the Dalles.
Thank you, Jake. Leslie Naramore.
Morning, everyone. I'm Leslie Naramore. I'm the Executive Director of Mid-Columbia Community Action Council. And I just wanted to share right now I am on a mission to get around to every county and city within our service area. So that's Hood River, Wasco, and Sherman. So last night I was out at Rufus, and next week I'm out at Wasco. And if you keep your eyes peeled, you'll find me at a local city or county near you, and just giving an update on all things that are happening at MCAC. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Debbie Jones is joining us. Debbie, on board there?
Yes. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. All I could see was myself. Yes, Debbie Jones. I'm mostly I'm the director of Youth Think, but I'm attending today as a concerned Rowena area resident. So that's the hat I'm wearing today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Debbie. We have Kevin.
Hi, everybody. Kevin Gorman. I'm the Executive Director at Friends of the Columbia Gorge. Thank you, Dan, for the invite today. I'm interested in just listening and learning more about what the community is doing and how we might be able to plug in. I will mention we had 2 preserves that burned, and one had a residence on it that was destroyed. We had a great tenant, and his son has disabilities. Unfortunately, we were able to move him to a property we have down at the Rowena Dell. So I was glad to see that he wasn't displaced. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks.
That's some positive news there, Kevin. Thank you for making time for this and joining us. We have a Zoom user down here. Would you like to identify yourself? And if not, I'm going to go ahead and go to introductions to our guest speakers this morning. Kelly, how about if I start with you, and then if you'd like to call upon one of your colleagues here for introductions.
That would be great. Thank you, Dan. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kelly Housley Glover. I'm the Wasco County Community Development Managing Director. So I manage the planning division and also our Tri-County Hazardous Waste and Recycling Program. Just a shameless plug that we do have an event this Saturday in the Dalles. If you have not registered, please go ahead and do that. We do have open spaces. For the Rowena Fire recovery efforts, I have been stepped into the role of the recovery branch director. And in partnership with Andrew Dannies of MCEDD, we are co-chairing the long-term recovery group efforts, which includes looking at a holistic approach to recovery using a national model. So really happy to be here. The other thing hat I'm wearing is leading the development services. So that's planning, on-site, and building code services for a community information session on August 27th. And I can talk a little bit more about that. But I'm happy to turn the introductions over to our incredible United Way partner, Carolyn Grew, this morning. Thanks.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you so much, Kelly. It's an honor to be on this call.
Kelly and Andrew contacted us after the Rowena Fire broke out in mid-June and asked if United Way would like to be the trusted fund holder for any donations or grants raised for Rowena. And our board unanimously agreed to take this role. And I serve as executive director for United Way of the Columbia Gorge. This is my 3rd year. And it's been an incredible partnership with MCEDD and Wasco County. They are so professional and we've worked really well together. To date, we have raised $300,000 for the Rowena Fire Recovery Fund. This has been through donations, generous donations from individuals, from businesses, organizations. We also have received numerous grants. Our largest grant we just received yesterday is from Safeway and Albertsons, and that was $167,000 that we received yesterday, which is an incredible, generous amount. It comes from community members. They had the option for people to round up their donations when they paid at the register. So this was collected through all Safeways in Oregon in the month of June and July. And then we've received grants from Umpqua Bank and numerous others. We've also had many fundraisers. United Way had a fundraiser on June 27th for Rowena and United Way. For Rowena, we raised $38,000 at this fundraiser. And then we had a fundraiser last week at Mount Hood Winery, and that raised $40,000. It's been an incredible team effort of volunteers, community members, businesses donating auction items, and the community really showing up and just being there for Rowena. To date, we have not dispersed these funds. United Way is serving as a trusted fund holder for these funds, and our board has unanimously agreed that 100% of these donations are going to the fire recovery efforts. And so that's something that I wanted to share. We're very proud of this. We have recently received a grant from the Oregon Community Foundation to help our admin support. Prior to the fires, I was a part-time employee, and our board said, you know, this is going to take a lot of work. And so I've come full-time as of 2 weeks ago to help manage these Rowena fire recovery efforts. But the way that our team is being compensated is through the Oregon Community Foundation for admin support. No donations will be covering any admin support, which is really exciting to share. And I'm just very grateful for our active board members. I have Tanya on the call here. I don't know if we have any other board members, but we have a very active Wasco Sherman Council that has been very active in fundraising, and numerous organizations have stepped up and said, how can we help? We have funds. There's been baseball benefit games. There's been golf tournaments. There's Dallas football benefit coming up on August 29th, but it's just so inspiring to see how the Wasco Sherman community, the Hood River community have stepped up to support Rowena. And we've also brought this up to the national level with United Way Worldwide. They've contacted us to support us with resources. And so this is the first time for me as a leader of the organization having this direct support from United Way Worldwide, connecting us to national grants. We've partnered with local United Ways, United Way of Jackson County. They've been a tremendous support, sharing guidelines and documents, applications. So it's really been a team effort, and I'm just so grateful for everyone's support and also for the partnership with MCEDD and Wasco County.
Thank you, Carolyn. That sounds like a good segue over to Andrew, to me. Andrew?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. As Kelly said, kind of right when the fire happened, we knew there was going to be a lot of long-term recovery needed. And so she reached out about setting up the long-term recovery group. One of the first things we did was talk to United Way and Caroline, Paul Blackburn, about accepting donations. They had an infrastructure to do that. We did not. And so we wanted to really take advantage of, the community support closer to the event when the, kind of emotions are strongest and people are most likely to want to give donations. So it's been an excellent experience working with United Way and especially working with Wasco County and Kelly. Been doing excellent work setting everything up. We're kind of building the plane as we're flying it, but we've gotten a lot of great advice from Oregon Emergency Management, other people who have set up long-term recovery groups as well. So it's been, a really eye-opening experience about the kind of long-term nature of this long-term recovery group. I'm also realizing I don't think I introduced myself. So I'm Andrew Dannies. I'm Deputy Director at MCEDD, and for purposes of this call, the co-chair of the long-term recovery group.
Excellent. Andrew, thank you for joining us. And Carolyn, thank you for those fantastic updates. It's good to know. Kelly, why don't we turn it back over to you and tell us where we are, where we're going. What's the status?
Just to set the stage, Andrew alluded to this. Based on all the information that we've been given by state experts and really reading a lot of national literature about disaster recovery, we know the average time for full recovery is typically about 7 years nationally. Depending on a variety of factors, it can be up to 25 years for a community to recover. And in fact, what state partners have shared about some of the 2020 wildfires is that there are still areas that have not recovered yet. So Andrew mentioned really the task that we're looking at as a long-term recovery effort to support the Rowena community. And really our goal is to create conditions and tie together resources and tools to make it possible for folks to return if that is what they choose to do. We understand that some folks may choose to move on, and I think that's a valid choice. But I saw something in the chat. Sorry. But in any case, we're prepared to walk alongside residents for the long term, and we can talk a little bit about what that looks like. Andrew can fill in some of the pieces that he's working on, and I can talk a little bit about the pieces I'm working on. I'm really grateful for Leslie Naramore being here. She is on our long-term recovery group. She is really taking on the housing task force piece. MCAC has done an incredible job supporting case management and using their rapid recovery program to help find permanent housing for, Leslie, you'll have to correct me. I believe it was between 12 households now that have been able to be placed into some kind of permanent stable housing. We're aware that we have 19 now. Oh, that's fantastic, Leslie. So 19 households. We're aware we're going to have some folks that still need that interim support until they're able to move onto their property. And so I'm working with state partners to hopefully be able to utilize Wasco County property on the west side of town to put in an interim housing situation. And I'm working with state partners to look at potential mobile homes that could meet scenic area standards and could comfortably accommodate our residents whose ultimate goal is to return back to their property. One of the challenges that we have with this community, in addition to it being a highly vulnerable population, is that the infrastructure in this area is old and it has challenges, and it was impacted by the fire. And so we have spun up an infrastructure team and are trying to pull together all possible resources to tackle infrastructure. And that includes some community water systems that are in Thule Terrace and Rowena Crest Manor, but it also, and we've got some shared wells along Highway 30, but it also means looking at the septic systems and trying to find a long-term resilient solution to addressing those things. And that may mean partnering with some of our service providers to extend services out in this area, or it may mean other types of models. So we're really looking at everything possible to solve for infrastructure and pull together resources to help support those rebuilding efforts. Dan has graciously agreed to help spin up a communications subcommittee that will be looking to push out positive messaging and also supporting MCEDD is building a website specifically designated for recovery, because what we've heard from residents is they want information all in one place that's easily accessible. So that's our hope. We also are in the process of creating some social media accounts so that, again, we have a messaging hub, because the phase that we're in is really starting to move away from the immediate response and relief into the more interim long-term phase. So again, Andrew and I, the tail of what we're working on is years. So we want to create those infrastructures that folks can access the information long-term and be aware of what's kind of happening. We do have a notification email list that we're encouraging folks to sign up for, and that's where we're pushing out some of this information right now. Incident Command through the Public Information Officer is also utilizing Everbridge, which is the emergency alerts. So they're able to send text messages, and they're also pushing things out on the sheriff's Facebook page and some other channels. And then, of course, information directly from disaster case managers. But want to say that our news media has been incredibly supportive in these efforts, and including not having information behind paywalls, and they've graciously agreed to have links on their websites to the new website. So we're really looking forward to those types of community partnerships that, again, we can surround the Rowena community with all of the resources that we have to our availability. And Carolyn mentioned, really appreciate all the community members that have shown up in support and taken on tasks in their spare time, or have donated very generously funds, because and I'll let Andrew speak to the funding aspect, but that will be incredibly important. I mentioned the development services piece. We are going to have a community info session on the 27th, and that will cover on-site, so that's septic, building codes, and also planning. And what we're really trying to do is address some myths that we've heard out in the community, but also answer questions. We're not going to be doing a live question. We're asking residents to send those in. And the reason behind that is that we want to make sure we're being very trauma informed about the way we respond to residents, because we're recognizing this is just an incredible trauma for folks. Even if they had minimal impacts, it's still that experience of seeing friends and neighbors having homes destroyed is incredibly devastating. So we want to be really sensitive to that. So we're going to have that meeting for an hour at the Board of County Commissioner Chambers, August 27th at 5 p.m. Again, we'll be answering sent in questions, talking about some myths, and then talking about some next steps. The other thing I'm really excited about with that opportunity is that we have teamed up, the three departments have teamed up, and we'll be offering appointments for residents to come spend an hour with all three teams at the same time, so that they can talk about their individual property and not have to bounce from department to department. And this is a new model for us that we're trying out. We're really excited about it. And what we're looking to learn is where those really challenging cases are that we may need some more focused attention and some triaging. So we think this is a really, really great service. Again, it's a new thing for us, but all the partners are on board, and we're really, really excited about it. We've done a ton of research in the background, so we're pretty familiar with most of the properties and what the history is land use wise and with septic and what have you. But what we really want to hear from individual property owners is what their vision is, so that we can support them. We are going to also encourage folks to sign up for that notification list, because again, as we start to wind down the more immediate efforts, we want to make sure that they're staying in touch. And Debbie, I appreciate Debbie being here today. She's been an example of an incredible conduit to the community who lives in the community, sending out emails, and trying to keep her in touch with what's moving on our front. But really appreciate all those community-led efforts, because it's important, again, to keep that sense of community and keep folks abreast. The other thing I'll say that's probably of interest to folks has to do with the National Scenic Area regulations and what the county is doing to help provide some solutions, given some of the challenges, I guess, that folks feel with respect to the National Scenic Area guidelines. And I'm really happy to report I had a call yesterday with the Columbia River Gorge Commission attorney, Jeff Litwack, and I've had a couple calls with Executive Director Christina Wolnikowski. And we're really excited because we're very much on the same page, re-envisioning a potential plan amendment. So this would be an out of schedule amendment to the management plan that the scope is solely focused on disaster, redevelopment after disaster, and sort of addressing some of these disaster needs. And what we're looking to do based on yesterday's call is to put together a joint sort of application for a plan amendment that looks at a variety of solutions. And I'm really excited about that because I understand Skamania County will also be supporting those efforts. They are still recovering from, folks will remember, the Burgoyne fire and also the tunnel fires. And they've run into some challenges as far as implementing some of the scenic area guidelines. So this will be a tool for them. And we also have heard positively from our partners in Hood River City and Hood River County. And I expect also Multnomah County and Clark County will be on board, because these rules do impact everybody. And I think looking for some solutions that, again, don't fundamentally change resource protection, but really give us a more clear expedited path to redevelopment is going to be incredibly beneficial long-term. And it recognizes the best available data that we have on disaster recovery. Because I think we have to remember is these disaster provisions, excuse me, in the management plan, they were really written in the 80s and early 90s when we didn't have a lot of longitudinal information about the types of wildfires and flooding we're seeing today. So, you know, again, we're going to be looking at modifying some of those redevelopment standards, looking for ways to actually expedite that. And then the other thing that we talked about that I think everybody is on board with is modeling some of the efforts that the Oregon legislature and the governor's office have put into place in response to the 2020 wildfires in Oregon. So specifically what that looks like is right now we can only permit RVs up to 60 days in a calendar year in the National Scenic Area. In Oregon, we can permit them after disaster up to 5 years on a property. So we're looking to develop some kind of corollary in the scenic area that would allow for longer term RV stays. And then potentially also looking at some supporting accessory structures on a temporary basis. Again, trying to respond to what citizens have raised to us, the county, and staff at the planning division. Finally, I'll wrap by saying we've also asked the Columbia River Gorge Commission, based on public input and requests, to develop some ready-made approvable materials like color schemes, give us an actual rating of reflectivity that folks can do the research on windows. And that will be also something that I can take when I'm having conversations with these mobile home manufacturers, I can take to them and they can help us develop scenic area ready manufactured homes, because a lot of the homes that we lost in this area are manufactured homes. And we want folks to be able to replace like with like and not have to go hire expensive architects and engineers, but to really just be able to get a shelf-ready manufactured home if that's what they would like. So those are kind of the wide scope of things that we're working on. There are lots of other aspects to recovery. I really appreciate the opportunity to share, and I'm always available to answer any kind of questions. If folks are interested, we are, as we're spinning up these subcommittees, always looking for folks who maybe feel a particular passion about a topic to join. And eventually, we're really trying to give the community some space to recover and to process what happened. Long term, we'd really like to see more community representation, and that will be a conversation for the long-term recovery group. But folks are always invited to sit in on those meetings. We do have some regular audience members from the state who, again, incredible partnerships, as Andrew mentioned, with ODHS Orem, who have been our guides through recovery. You'll also see Oregon Office of Emergency Management. And I can say, too, that the governor's office has been incredibly supportive of our efforts really since day one. We had that conflagration declaration declared almost immediately. That enabled state resources to get on response, which I think was incredibly beneficial to fighting the fire, and they've stayed. And so we've had connection to the ODHS Orem since the event started until now, and which has been really incredible. And then finally, since commissioners on the call, wanted to acknowledge that our board is been incredibly responsive to department needs and to helping work with citizens on moving forward through this process. So I'm really grateful to county leadership, and then also really grateful to MCEDD, who has stepped up and been just a tireless support and partner, working not only on the LTRG, but also at serving as the liaison function for our Incident Command Emergency Operations Center, and helping to tie all those pieces together, including Jessica Mehta, the executive director, managing the donation center. So I'm happy to answer any questions if folks have that. Otherwise, I think probably great to kick it over to Andrew, and he can talk about some other aspects of the long-term recovery.
And if folks would like to ask questions, if it's okay with our presenters, taking questions during the information, if that's all right, or people can put questions in the chat box. I'm keeping an eye on that. I see we have one already, but first let's go over to Andrew.
Oh, I was going to give an opportunity if anyone had any questions for Kelly.
This is Kevin. I'm curious about Debbie's question in the chat too. I hadn't heard that, and I'm hoping the state isn't pulling back on the funding costs. So I'm curious to hear if there's any information about that.
Kelly, is that DEQ?
So one of our state partners, DEQ, was engaged in phase 1. So they did an extensive pickup of hazardous materials. So a lot of what we saw was propane tanks that folks had, so household hazardous waste. And again, there is an opportunity for folks to go to our Saturday event and dispose of those items if anything was left behind. And then they also did extensive testing on each property about making sure, because what they were watching for were chemicals like petroleum or asbestos. So they did detailed analysis. That does take time. And then we're taking a pause between phase 1 and phase 2. I'm not prepared. I'm not involved in the debris management task force. So I'm not prepared, unfortunately, Debbie, to speak about debris management. I can just share the information that I've been given to share, which is there is a pause. There is some funding gaps. And so if folks are wanting to go ahead now that the debris has been tested, and if I think DEQ is spinning up an opportunity to work with residents on an individual basis to get those testing results, then the recommendation is that folks can proceed once they know those results, because that's going to be critical for taking it, which landfill you take it to and how it gets disposed of. And really encouraging folks to work with insurance. But again, that's really all I can say. I'm not on the debris management task force and not prepared to make remarks about that today.
Kelly, who is heading up that task force?
It's a partnership with DEQ and then operations. And I think if folks have questions, they can direct them to the public information officer, Stephanie Crowell, and she can put folks in touch with the right folks. I know there is some talk about doing an information session really soon, either next week or future time, and they will be able to answer more directly those citizen questions. But I know the intent is to either text or phone call residents to talk through debris management. But that's why I don't want to get, I don't have the ability to speak to that. Those efforts are happening separate of the long-term recovery group.
Understood. And having worked with brownfield recovery myself, there is complexity in working with DEQ, EPA, any expenditures of funds there. But Debbie, you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, and Kelly, thank you for just being, hey, I don't have the answer. Sometimes that's even better. But I did, if you could just briefly, I've heard a lot of people get kind of discouraged when they hear some of the main people say, you know, this could take up to 25 years for full recovery. And I think they get a sense that, oh, that's the red tape type thing. Could you give a little bit more of, you know, of an explanation? What does that mean when you say that? Because, well, I'm going to be quiet, or when everybody, because I think that's something people have heard and they get really discouraged when I think they don't maybe have a full understanding of why you guys say that.
Question.
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. I think it's a great question. So that's really based on just national data that we have on disaster recovery. And it could be a variety of reasons. It could be because, you know, we think about disasters, not just wildfire. It could be flooding. It could be hurricanes. It could be tornadoes. So we're really trying to look holistically at all the data to understand best practices. It could be because an area was completely devastated by a disaster. And so there is no existing infrastructure available. There's no roads, there's no electricity, there's no sewer and water. And those things, I think for folks who are aware of large public works projects, you know, those things take a lot of money and they take time. They take time to get through engineering procedures, some permitting, but also I want to be conscious of the fact that there's also another aspect to recovery taking a long time, is that, and Debbie, I know you're really well steeped in sort of trauma and how that impacts individuals. It may be that folks they don't feel ready to return to a place immediately. And so that's some of what we're seeing too, in some of the fire events that have happened in Oregon, or disasters that have happened elsewhere, where it's not just the funding and the permitting and, like you said, the red tape aspect of it, which I can say Wasco County is working really, really diligently to streamline everything that we can and look for paths to expediting if folks want to return. But there is that aspect, that human aspect. And again, we're trying to recognize those hurdles for individuals, setting up with partners like One Community Health and Mid-Columbia, why am I blanking on it? Center for Living, and offer some of those emotional, mental health support systems to help people work through this really, really traumatic event. But I think that's it. It's complex. Recovery is really complex. So it's not just the bureaucracy. It's not just the red tape. It's all of the things that go in to recovery. So from an emotional state, from a financial state, I've heard from residents that they're already seeing challenges with insurance, for example. So there is, you know, some bureaucracy with dealing with insurance companies, for example. It's just, I think that's why we're really grateful for state support in understanding the holistic nature of long-term recovery. And that's, you know, one of the purposes of the model of a long-term recovery group is to treat things very, very holistically. And that's really what it can impact recovery. It can impact the recovery timeline. So I think what we've heard from some of our state partners, they've had different varying degrees of success. Our folks in Umatilla and Wallowa who presented to our group recently, they were able to recover after really serious flooding and then some hailstorm, just very, very serious hailstorm activity. They were able to recover after about 2.5 years. Whereas comparatively, other parts of the state have seen a longer time period really to address all those complicated community needs. So I will say the 25-year timeline is the worst case scenario. Our target is to get something more reasonable, but I do want to be acknowledged that we do have complicated infrastructure issues in this community that are going to take a lot of resources and a lot of time to help figure out. And I think we have to, like I said, we're looking at it from a multi-tiered approach, trying to tackle those complex issues from multiple angles so that we can get to a solution. But I want to set expectations that based on everything we know, it's not going to be a year to recover. It likely is going to be longer. I will say though, we're really excited because my team is actively processing the first National Scenic Area application for redevelopment structure. And that's been an incredible experience. So I suspect we will see some other folks going through that process. I just think for other folks, it's going to take longer. So hopefully that helped.
Thank you, Kelly. I do want to turn this over to Andrew, but we have a question from Jill. Jill Amory.
I don't want to cut Andrew short, so I'll try and be brief. As a Rowena River Fire resident and impacted property owner, number one, I couldn't be more proud of the community and the way they've come together and all the response. And I think we're positioning ourselves really well for long-term recovery. But I want to make it clear to everybody, and I feel somewhat blessed to be able to advocate for this community with what I do. The reality is, until we can get through debris cleanup, we cannot get to long-term recovery. And so I'm in constant contact with DEQ, having great conversations. They're super supportive. We're not in a pause. They right now have no plan or no authority financially to move forward with the phase 2 debris cleanup. Their intention in the beginning was no more than a 2-week pause after phase 1 household hazardous waste was cleaned up. My last conversation is, yes, they have the raw data of all the testing, but they are not in a position to push that out to every resident to assist with individual cleanup at this time. And so this is where it gets very difficult to navigate for property owners on their own to get through that process to try and start moving forward. And again, I try to bring this to groups and have this conversation with individuals so that they understand what it is we're dealing with. And it was 9 weeks yesterday. What we're dealing with is there was a piece of metal that had blown in 40-mile-an-hour sustainable winds, 50-mile-an-hour gust in the middle of the road that we had to drive around for days on end. Everything's blowing. We get rain. It's impacting our soil. It's impacting our water. So until we can get past that phase, we can't really get to the long-term recovery. And again, I can't be more proud of everyone who's helping the community that we live in. And again, I think we're positioning ourselves really well for that long-term recovery, but we need help getting past the debris cleanup so that we can get to that point. I'll leave it there. Thanks, Dan.
Jill, I won't, of course, I can't represent DEQ, but nor can you, but can you tell us, is it a lack of funding? Is it the process of gaining the clearances from EPA? What is the holdup there? Do you have more detail on that?
So it is financial, and it's not just DEQ. Obviously, the money's not coming from DEQ. There's a lot of financial negotiation between several entities going on, but they don't have the funding to take that next step right now. Conversations are still happening, but they don't have a solution as of today.
Okay. I'd like to keep engaged in that conversation because over the past couple of years, I worked very closely with DEQ and EPA. Tanya?
Yeah, and again, it's not specifically them. The money's not coming from them, but they were going to be on the forefront of getting the job done once the money was made available.
Understood. Tonya?
I'm just curious if Jill has any idea what that number looks like. If they have shared a number with you that they need to get to the next step.
I'm not comfortable sharing that number, Tanya, but it's really big.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's turn it back over to Andrew.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and thanks to Kelly for kind of running down most of what we're doing. I think in the time we have, my time would be best spent kind of explaining what our plan is with the donations. So as Caroline mentioned, United Way has been just an incredible partner in all this. Jumped in immediately, had the infrastructure to start accepting donations, has been doing a ton of work seeking out additional donations, working with Safeway, as she mentioned, to get the funds from that. But United Way is not set up, or I think it's in their charter that they're not allowed to donate directly to individuals. So they give to organizations. And so we needed an organization that could manage the kind of funding aspect of getting money from United Way to affected individuals. And so MCEDD has a 501c3 that we operate. And so that will essentially be the fiscal sponsor of the long-term recovery group. As you mentioned, there's not any admin fees or project management costs associated with that. We have a couple options at MCEDD. We've been speaking with Ford Family Foundation about a possible disaster response grant to kind of cover our admin and project management costs, just to make sure that we're not using any donated funds for bureaucracy. You know, the community, when they donate funds, expect that to go to affected people, not to, you know, me, basically. And so we want to honor that. And so the, you know, kind of when this originally started, the plan was, oh, you know, we'll have a forum, folks will come to the long-term recovery group, explain what they need, and we'll give them, you know, as much as we can and just reasonable under our scoring matrix. It was quickly explained to me that that is incredibly trauma uninformed way of doing that. And so that's when we determined that the better way to go about it would be for affected residents to have a case manager. And we've been talking with Leslie at MCAC about providing those case management services, so that essentially an affected resident can fill out a brief form explaining who they are and what happened to them. That will connect them with the case manager, and then the case manager will do the kind of deep dive into what was lost, what are your highest priority needs, you know, what do you need to kind of get back up on your feet long term. And then the case managers will take that information, come to kind of the distribution committee, what we're going to call the unmet needs roundtable of folks who are in charge of determining what happens to the funds. And so the unmet needs roundtable is, you know, the committee that will determine the funding, but it will also hopefully kind of harness more of the power of the community. And so whether that's, you know, donations, manpower, volunteer hours, connections, anything like that, kind of looking at it in a more holistic way than just here's a check. It's more, you know, we want to be a partner in getting you back on your feet. And so that is kind of like I said, harnessing more of the power of the community. I have been you know, just personally feeling like, oh, we need to start getting money out. You know, our residents are affected, they're hurting, they need help. But it's been advised to us from other people who've gone through this in the past that almost kind of, if you start distributing money and start doing things too quickly, it can almost be worse than not doing anything at all. We were given examples of folks who were given, you know, materials to rebuild their house, but they weren't ready. There were still cleanup things, and that material just went to waste. And so there's kind of a push-pull of wanting to get this funding out and start helping people, but also making sure people are in a place where that funds or that those resources are going to do the most good. So, you know, when Jill mentioned cleanup isn't done at this point, you can't rebuild until you've cleaned up. And so those are the sorts of kind of pitfalls that we're trying to avoid by taking best practices from what other groups have done, and trying to be patient and take a long-term view. And I know Leslie, I think, said in the chat that they've made contact with a lot of the folks who have been affected. And so, yeah, working with MCAC, we're really excited to do. Leslie's been a great partner on this. But yeah, it's the kind of unmet needs roundtable is about a long-term recovery more than it is about, you know, where are you going to sleep tonight, or, you know, what does the next 2 weeks look like? It's more, what does the next 2 years look like? And so we're trying to keep that long view in mind. So that's, I know we're getting fairly close to 8, so I don't want to keep going, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Andrew, I would have one question. So just a fundamental one. Who do they contact? How do they get into the pipeline for this when assistance has become available for cleanup, especially?
Absolutely. So rowenarecovery.org will be the website that is kind of the hub of all of this. We'll also have our information distributed to folks through MCAC. I know they've done a ton of outreach as well. And so we're going to kind of count on MCAC to help funnel folks towards us as they're kind of the front lines of this. But yeah, so it'll be community outreach as well as rowenarecovery.org.
But if the website's not quite active yet, if people want to get in line now, would they contact?
I'm happy to Andrew at MCEDD.org. If they get a hold of anybody at MCEDD.org, it'll get to me and I'll get it to the right people.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. It's just I know from perspective, you know, people, okay, well, what do I do? How do I reach somebody? Okay. Other questions for the group here? Hearing none and reading the chat box here. Great. Leslie, additional information from you representing Community Action. I see you put a
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was just putting in the chat that there's been a donation of brand new mattresses, and we've been working with the county on that. And we now have those mattresses in storage. So if there's affected residents, they can give us a call and we can arrange a time for them to pick up those mattresses. We would just need to verify their address.
Leslie, would you put the number in the chat box?
Yeah, I wasn't quite done. I'll put that in the chat. And I just wanted to make sure that Debbie was aware of that because I know she's been a trusted messenger in the community.
Very good to know. Thank you, Leslie. Very important number that's in the chat box that Kelly has placed, hotline for disaster case management. So see that number 1-833-669-0554. That number's in the chat box. All right, everyone.
Dan, I have a question for Leslie. Leslie, I'm not sure. I was talking with Tim McLaughlin, and he was working on a group for donations like furniture and those sorts of things. Are you up to date on where that is?
I do have a team member who has been working with Tim, and yes, we are aware of that group, and we are working with them to get furnishings to people once we're able to move them into a new home.
And follow-up question, is that going through United Way? Is it a nonprofit? Can people donate and get, a qualified nonprofit status? Do you know that?
I don't know that. I believe that's just an independent group, and I'm not sure if they're still accepting donations because when they started, it kind of turned into its own disaster where there were so many things donated. So I would reach out to Tim directly. I will say that at MCAC, when we have an ask from a resident, we are putting that on our Facebook. So like, for example, we had someone who needed a specific kind of chair. So we're using that route where we're asking for very specific things instead of just saying like, bring us your stuff and we'll see what we can do. But if you're wondering about that group with Tim, I would reach out to Tim directly because I don't have that info.
I can share that. I can share that. Bountiful Blessings is going to be being the transition organization to take donations, and I believe they're working to see how they can leverage some of those things that they have available for the Burgoyne survivors as well. But Leslie's right; they are capped on physical donations. We're really looking to support targeted donations moving forward as Leslie's team works incredibly hard to get folks into more permanent stable housing. So Bountiful Blessings would really be the resource. And if folks want to support Bountiful Blessings or the food bank has also been an incredible partner. And then don't forget about United Way.
Yeah.
United Way is still accepting funding for Rowena Fire. And again, with United Way's incredible support and the incredible support of MCEDD, those funds will be directly distributed to impacted households through the Unmet Needs Roundtable. So if folks are wanting to help, money really goes a long way.
And on that key point, Carolyn, if people want to give, let's get that in the chat box. How do they do it?
So you can donate directly through a check. We have a local PO Box 2. We've set up a designated account with Umpqua Bank. So folks can go directly to Umpqua Bank and donate to the Rowena Fire Recovery Fund. You can also donate online on the United Way website. And Kelly, will that QR code and all that information be on the new website to share with folks?
It certainly will. Yeah. And on our social media as well.
Carolyn, what is the website for the chat box?
Okay, I'll include that. It's United Way of the Columbia Gorge, and we have a donate button. I will include both of those links.
Fantastic. Thank you. Good information, everyone. Other critical information to bring forward. We're at the hour. This has been a very informative discussion. It is, of course, something that Rowena is the epicenter right now. I would remind people that if fire crews had not done a fantastic job, Lyle would probably be not there right now. Everyone faces this risk, and that includes the Dows. Nobody is out of this, and it's not going to get any better. So the process that we're going through now, a learning curve, certainly, but lessons learned will stay with us for a long time. Everyone, I think we'll wrap up. I appreciate all of you joining this discussion this morning. Thank you for everything that you are all doing. We'll get there. We'll get through this. We'll get through this. I'm going to close it off. Thank you so much on behalf of the Dallas Area Chamber. Take care.
Thanks, Dan.